Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Warcry podcast. Meaningful discussion, community-driven topics. Please join me in welcoming your host, Norgoz. What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Warcry podcast. Happy Friday to each and every one of you guys. Really appreciate you being here. And of course, we have a great show in store for you tonight. I have some fellows I'll show on the screen here in just a moment. But before we get to that, I want to make sure that you guys are all fully on the same page with me. I want to reiterate to you guys why this podcast was created and what its purpose is. My purpose is to bring to you guys meaningful discussions about community-driven topics. Right now, tonight, what we're going to be talking about is game development. We're going to talk a little bit about hero balancing. We're going to be talking about that overly memed player population. LOL, dead game. Yeah, we're going to talk about that shit. We're going to talk about the community's perception of all of these things as well. I'm going to bring on our fellow guests here right now. And I am joined today by Setback, who is an Eagle Scout, top 250 in Overwatch ranked, top 6th duelist worldwide in Season 1 of Ranked and For Honor, renowned MS Paint emote artist, and one half of the 2v2 tournament host with Zero Crack tomorrow. At what time is that, Setback?
I don't fucking know.
I believe it's 1 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, that sounds right.
In regular Setback fashion, and that's that's the kind of love that we need. I appreciate you, man. Okay, we also have Raven, part of the competitive scene, founder and tournament organizer of For Honor Arena. He plays second in the faction war hosted by Lord Dim, third in the For Honor console 2v2 weekend brawl, and I believe that's through Light Boogie. We've got third place in Strawberries 4v4 Dominion.
And first place in your heart, Norgoz.
First place in my heart. I don't know. Maybe you might have to fight over that one, but you know what, baby? I'll give it to you right now. All right, guys.
You'll give it to him?
You know what? That's not what I meant. I'll give him that placement. Chill out. We're trying to. You know what? This is a family show.
Placement right on your bed.
We're trying to stay on the air right now. This is. I digress. So we have one more person to introduce to you guys, and he should come as no surprise as to being known throughout the community as a highly competitive, highly skilled player. His name is Fatal-Feit. He's also known and renowned through Ubisoft as an expert and game tester, and he's a fantastic individual. And I would say that he's Anthony Kongfam if he listened to My Chemical Romance. Fatal, we appreciate having you guys all here today. Setback, Raven, Fatal, thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks for having us, man.
Appreciate it.
Thank
And
you.
of course, all of you guys lurking and hanging out. Okay, so let's get straight into it. We know why you came. You didn't just want to look at our pretty faces, although I think we've got some pretty faces on here tonight, right? So, game development and player population. I want to get straight into this right now. We've got a lot of things going on in game development, and there's not a lot of talk about what's going on in game development. And I think that that's something that has been frustrating to a lot of us because this goes back to the E3 announcement. We talked about, there was the announcement of spectator mode. That was in the pre-show. We talked about that last week. There was an announcement of Setback opening his shirt because it's sexy as hell.
Sorry, I had an itch there.
Just had an itch, I understand. You got to do your thing. So, you've also got the Soul Rush event that came out. That was the big E3 spot for For Honor on at the E3 conference. And a lot of players seem to have potentially been kind of let down through that. And I think it's understandable. The following Warriors Den, and every Warriors Den pretty much since then, has been either a reiteration of Spectator Mode and Soul Rush, or a very short stream that's in regards to just talking about the community corner, and which is a really important thing. I think if they didn't have community corner, that it wouldn't be the same kind of cast. It shows that they're reaching out to the community and they appreciate the creators. So I like that. They talk about the tournaments, which is a big deal. Mistress does a fantastic job of that. Then they also have little bit of introduction talking about the new emotes and stuff of that nature. But what we're not getting a lot of, and this is why some people are concerned, we have the Viking hero coming out in just a few weeks, right?
Yeah.
So we have that coming out in just a few weeks. We still haven't heard anything about it. We haven't seen any pictures. We haven't heard anything in terms of like what is the voice actor sounds like. We have. I'll be honest with you. I would throw that out there. I know Kitty's threw his name in the hat several months ago. I don't know if you guys knew that or not. I was paying attention to it, and I would be really psyched if we saw a Kitty's voicing the hammer. I would very much appreciate something like that. That would be awesome. Could you imagine Kitty's?
I would not mind that at all.
I wouldn't mind it at all either, dude. Kitty, that Kitty's laugh as you're getting your head smashed in, dude. That would be sick. So we haven't gotten anything of that. So my question is, because we know that there's something going on behind the scenes. Maybe they haven't finished up with the testing. Maybe they haven't finalized stuff, but we're not getting a lot of talks in the interim. So all we can do is just kind of, speculate. And I don't like to speculate. I don't know about you guys. I don't like to speculate. So my question to you guys are, right now, what are the devs currently doing right that you would like to see continued? And what are the areas of opportunity that the community can help bring something to the table? And I'm going to start this off with Raven.
Picking on me like always, Norgoz.
Nah, it's because you got thick skin, buddy.
So I think that's like the most important things are going to be regular balancing updates, regular content updates in the form of like new maps for their most played modes. Like Tribute and Elimination are cool, but the queues to get into any of those modes are it's just extremely long. Like I just can't ever find a queue for Tribute. And while they're making some beautiful maps like Canopy,
oh, love it.
I think they should focus more. It's an amazing map. It really is. But I think they should focus a little bit more on Dominion because it's the most played mode by a wide margin. Not only just casually through matchmaking, but also in tournaments. So that's a really big one. Making new maps, good maps. Maybe not too many hazards. But besides that, can like continually update the rest of the cast. Like if you look at characters like Shinobi right now, he still has an insta kill gank that is, I'm sure everybody here would agree, mildly frustrating, at the very least. Mildly frustrating. Stuff like that.
Wait, can you elaborate on that for us? For those of us that aren't as familiar with Shinobi's moveset, can you elaborate on what?
Please don't.
It's okay, Setback. I believe you can handle this. I believe in you.
Hold on. Let me get ready.
Drink a little bit of coffee. So, like range GB. So, Shinobi's range guard break. If he lands it on you and he has any teammates nearby, you can kiss your health bar. Like you're dead. You can't really do anything there. You better hope that you get revenge from that range GB. Because if you don't, you're dead.
Okay.
Especially if there's like a Highlander Raider around to help him with that. So stuff like that really needs to be removed. So at least, big damage. So you have at least a fighting chance if you're getting ganked. That's just kind of like an easy peasy insta-kill gank, which I think should be removed for the sake of competitive gameplay and just for the sake of like beginners coming to the game, trying to have a good time. They get range GB once and they're like, okay, I couldn't do anything about that. This game is
pretty much
fun.
game, set, match. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from with the range GB, and I've always had a complaint with external guard breaks, and some of that's my own personal, I guess, shortcomings. Regular, they're not really, I don't feel like they're not telegraphed enough for my, and again, maybe this is just my shortcomings personally, but specifically for Shinobi for sure, you're pretty much stuck. If you have a Shinobi out there that's nearby and you're in a 1vx situation, Shinobi's nearby, you've got to pay attention to where the Shinobi is, and you got to be able to actually physically see them. Because if you can't, you're not going to be able. You're going to just be guessing as to whether or not to react to that kind of stuff. So I completely understand where you're coming from with that. So I wanted to piggyback off that Setback, would you like to share with us the the stress and the anxiety that the shinobi has displayed upon you?
No, I would. My therapist says I'm not allowed to talk about it yet. I'm not ready.
Not ready.
Um,
Okay.
But yeah, Shinobi, like unironically, should be deleted. And anyone who has double-digit reps is probably a terrible human being. That's just my factual, personal opinion.
Fact base. He's got his own docket of where he's been just kind of checking off. He's like checking his list, checking his twice. Are you a shinobi? Yeah, you're dead to me. I got you. Okay. Fatal, would you like to follow up again? What are the devs currently doing right that you'd like to see continued, and what are their areas of opportunity where us then from the community, what can we do to help? And especially like in regards to like shinobi range guard break, or other things, of course. I think you're muted.
You're muted.
Oh yeah, you're still muted. You're still muted. Still muted.
All right, I'll translate. Delete Shinobi is what he's saying.
It's still showing. It's through Discord. You're clicking on Discord, right? There it is.
There we go.
Sweet. Go for it.
So I'm no longer muted.
Right. We hear you.
Okay. So yeah. So one thing I wanted to say was just regarding Shinobi, because I think anything that's already been said about them has already been said. But
fair enough.
Listening to Mr. Freeze's videos has probably been the best thing Ubisoft has done, and I think we all can
Yes.
collectively agree on that.
Yes.
And he just needs to keep making videos. We all have to keep asking him to make new videos, and
Yep.
Ubisoft just keeps fixing it from there and there.
That's a really
So in other
good
words,
point.
Ubisoft, please sponsor Freeze.
Yes, 100%.
And literally give him money.
I want to piggyback that is from what you were saying, Fatal, and I apologize if I'm taking the wind out of your sails on this. He made a video about Lawbringer's long arm and the flip, and it was fixed, 3 days later, something like that?
Yep.
It was less than a week. It was literally patched out to where you could get a gank off of 100-0 gank off of Lawbringer's long arm because it wasn't giving revenge, and they fixed it so it's now giving revenge, as well as some other stuff, like something off of Tiandi and a couple other heroes. Yeah, Caber Toss off of Highlander. Yep. Yeah. So those things were fixed and those were adjusted.
I also want to give him credit for standard guard switch. I think I'd say that was probably him who really told everyone that, hey, this is an issue. We need to push this out, and Ubisoft eventually did that in another patch. So, just keep letting him make videos, and the game will be better. But like you guys said, just hire him. He's probably doing more work than they are.
That's a very strong statement. That's a very strong statement. But I'll be honest. I mean, to be honest with you, though, as much time as it does take to, because he gets requests, right? He'll get requests from someone within the community. They go to him. They see him as sort of a voice or sort of the mechanical guru, and he is definitely the mechanical guru. I mean, I never assume to know everything about the mechanics, and if I ever not know something about the mechanics, I always say, okay, I'll tell you who you need to talk to. You need to talk to Freeze, seriously. So, we're gonna go with that. And sorry, I can't read and talk at the same time. I literally can't read and talk at the same time. So what I'm saying is that Freeze definitely, I think he should get some kind of a sponsorship. But as far as like working, yeah, it is something that he works really hard. He's got to test everything out. He's got to do all the recordings. He's got to formulate different people that can come together and help him test out, because it's not the same with the bot. Trust me, I've done it. I've tried to test out some stuff myself. And again, I'm not a guru or anything, but it does take a lot of time and effort. So, to recap what we've talked about already. So, Shinobi bad. Setback says Shinobi really bad.
Shinobi bad, Freeze good.
Shinobi bad.
Yeah, that's good summary.
Nani? And Fatal thinks that we should get a sponsorship for Freeze.
Raven.
I think we can all agree. Can we all agree? Everybody in chat right now, can we all agree that Freeze should be receiving a sponsorship or a potential hire from Ubisoft? Let's get chat's perspective on that. And as the chat's giving their 2 cents, let me get some ups on that. I got to follow. And so to follow up on that, to piggyback off of this, so hero balance is a big topic when it comes to game development. And we all know that there's a lot of heroes that we have questions about or concerns about. Chat seems to agree with us. And I want to say, so when development changes are made with certain modes or heroes, and it's based on brand new or casual players, how does this affect us as a whole? And how does this affect us in terms of the competitive scene? There's a lot of different balances that have happened, different characters that have been reworked and changed. I think the one that really stands out for me, I think, is Aramusha, and he's been changed several times, and I can't keep up with exactly which change this was. You'll have to forgive me for this. Is that they're one of their justifications for changing Aramusmania was because it was hard to react. Basically it was like scaring off new players. It was scaring away new players. So when that's happening and we're changing heroes because it's scaring away new players, that really does affect the game as a whole, the community, all the players, from casual to competitive. And I would like to get your guys' thoughts on that. I want to start with Setback.
Well, new player retention and like drawing in new players is not exact science, and a lot of game developers and studios talk about this a lot. To where the common thread, I've heard this from Warframe devs, heard this from
Yep.
other places, is a lot of new player efforts to make things better for new players and retain new players usually do jack shit. It doesn't really help them that much. So making changes aimed at new players is a fickle beast and doesn't tend to work for certain types of games, maybe all games, I don't know. But so balancing a game around that seems like kind of fool's errand, because you have an audience, right? And they're been sticking around through thick and thin for the most part, and you don't want to alienate them, but at the same time you do want to expand your player base. But what gets new players to come in and stay isn't going to be things like making Aramusha slightly less scary, but maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe they have stats that I don't, but
That's true.
it seems hard to justify doing something that only specifically helps new people at this time period for the game's at this time of the game's lifespan, because the game's been out for a while. It's gone free several times. It's been cheap multiple times.
That's on a Steam sale right now. Free plug Steam. You're welcome.
So a lot of people who wanted to play have already played it or tried it out. It's like no one's going to reinstall because, oh, that one character, 2 swords, is slightly weaker. But someone told me all these patch notes. Like no one's going to do that, And it kind of echoes what the Warframe devs have said, is they'll revamp the entire like first 5 hours for new players, and only a small percentage of people who tried it before will come back and try it, and most of them will just leave anyways. So I think players kind of know what they want pretty quickly, and it's going to be in like grand sweeping things, not small balance changes that affect high level, But I know there's always exceptions to the rules too. I mean, I'm sure there's cases in other video games that there was like specifically a character that drove away, thousands of players because there was no obvious counter right away for it. But I don't think Aramusha was that. But I could be wrong. And then I guess one last thing too is this goes back to the whole how much of this was console driven, and that ties into the whole input delay in console is really rough, and that can make
30
something like
FPS.
Aramusha a nightmare to deal with sometimes. So maybe they're onto something with the changing Aramusha, but the core issue might be the performance on console, not the balance of Aramusha itself.
Okay, I want to get response from Fatal on that, but I want to add in that you touched on a really important point, Setback, the console element, and I think a lot of us really tend to forget that. That's the big picture that I think a lot of people in the community seem to just kind of miss, and that is that we're balancing around PC and we're balancing around console all at the same time. So console is limited at 30 FPS, and there's actually a lot of people, you would be surprised as to how many people are still don't realize that 30 FPS it does change the dynamic of the game. It genuinely
it's not
does.
even the FPS does hinder it a little bit, but it really is like everyone who's played console and I've talked to, it's the input delay. Like that's what kills you.
Like 30 FPS, you can cap your PC at 30 FPS and it'll feel nothing like console still.
Yep.
That's true. That's a good point. But effectively, effectively, either way it goes, the point that I'm making is that I appreciate you guys holding me to that and correcting me. So my point is that on console, it's a different dynamic. You've got the input delay, you've got the 30 FPS on top of the input delay, which is what really kind of changes the dynamic of everything. So you've got Aramusha, you've got Zerker, you've got Orochi, very fast attacks, and now you've got Raider with that really fast stunning tap. So I think that's something that we kind of miss in the big picture of things, is that we're balancing around console and PC at the same time, and maybe that is something that we should be looking at, or the devs should be looking at, and maybe it's a potentially different way. Like I said, there's a lot of what ifs into this, and I'm sure that there's no real perfect answers, because this is the first rodeo when it comes to this game. For Honor is the very first of its kind. It's the first of its breed. It's a unique breed. It's not something that we've ever seen before. I don't think we'll ever see anything like this ever again from anyone other than Ubisoft. I don't think that, and maybe I'm wrong, and I'm probably reaching a little bit on that one, but I don't think that I know other people have tried it, like what was it? It's not Avatar. It was, the hell is that?
Absolver.
Absolver, thank you.
It's
Like
somewhat similar.
they
It's more like
tried
Dark
it.
Souls.
Somebody tried it with Absolver and it didn't work out very well for them. So I think that that's going to be a deterrent from people trying to bring out a new IP with this type of dynamic in terms of the fighting game. So with what Setback said and what I was trying to bring the big picture in mind, Fatal, your thoughts on development changes in regards to how it affects the community for, if we're balancing off of casuals or new players.
I mean, For Honor, it's one of the best games for bringing new players in. Like they don't have to do anything. If you look at this, if I was Ubisoft right now and I looked at the stats, I'd realize there's like tens and thousands of players just joining this game every day. So it's more about trying to retain these players, and that's the issue with For Honor, is that players are coming to the game. Thousands of players are coming to the game like every week. It's just nobody wants to stay because the game is very unintuitive. Like you play an FPS game, everyone knows how to play an FPS. You know how to
Yep.
aim and shoot, right? With For Honor, this is a melee action game, and it's very complicated. It's very unintuitive the way you have the three stances. And the issue with For Honor is the game doesn't teach people how to play it very well. Unfortunately, people,
Good point.
you're still trying to figure out how this complex game works, and then the game throws new ideas at you. Like now you have to dodge these unblockables. Now you have to learn how to gank, how to anti-gank, and how to target switch is another thing that people have problems with. And the game doesn't teach people these advanced things like, hey, maybe you should just press dodge back when Aramusha's doing his mix up on you, because that cancels everything, right? If the game teaches you that, then boom. Or even further, for the community for people to start teaching each other how to do this simple thing of just fighting Aramusha, just press the dodge button, hinders all of his mix ups, useless. And then, but the game really just needs to keep teaching players more and more on how it works. And this is kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier with what the community can ask for Ubisoft to get better at. And I think one of it is really just teaching players how to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like revenge is like one thing that I like to mention is revenge is something newbies don't learn because they don't see a UI for it.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone just keeps pressing that attack button without realizing there's this mechanic that's probably gonna screw you over. And Ubisoft refuses to add it, and I don't think it's like they're just being harsh about it. I think it's just because not enough players are asking for it. So I think, if we get Mr. Freeze to make a video on that, maybe we'll see something there. But really, I think if they want to keep the player base up, they don't have to worry about new players. They just have to worry about keeping them players. And one way to keep the players is teaching them how to get better at the game, how to improve. And they could do that through UI and tutorials and just improving that. I'd even argue that this is just as important as hero balancing. Like I think people would probably enjoy the game more if Ubisoft spent just as much time teaching them how to play the game as they are balancing and changing heroes and everything like that. Because like I said, some people still don't know how to fight Centurion. People still don't know how to. A lot of people talking about balancing aren't good at the game either way. So whatever Ubisoft do, they don't win right now. They just need to get players up there in the community.
I think it's pretty well said. Setback?
Could I interject with something really quick
Yes.
along the lines with what Fatal's saying? So I think it's worth Ubisoft going down that route and revamping and actually having useful guides and tutorials and actually trying to teach people. But kind of going back to what I was saying, like how many people will actually go through that and how many people would stay because of that. Because that's like a debate, amongst game developers is you have your time that you can allot to certain tasks with your team, and how much return would you get on new player experience and teaching them how to play the game. I'm just worried that they wouldn't get a big payoff from that, because that seems to be the case with a lot of other types of games, and that is like one of the big issues with fighting games in general, which I think we'll talk about later. Is
Right.
fighting games are hard to get a huge player base with, because they require lots of effort to get good at, and people don't want to put that effort in. They want to come home from work and fucking shoot aliens in the face with a gun.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. And that was one thing I was gonna say, is like, maybe they could, maybe, I guess, potentially, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about with Freeze, maybe potentially sponsor more videos for teaching new players how to play. But again, is that worth the resources? Is that worth the investment? I think that's the question that's going to be really difficult to answer at this point, at this stage in the game. Raven, you care to comment?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask if I could interject for a second.
Yes, sir. I kept you in the dark
you
there
know-
for a little bit.
No, you're good. You're good. So I don't think that it would be the best use of Ubisoft's resources, maybe to create brand new trading materials, simply because they do have a lot of things I'm sure they want to do with the game, and that could potentially take away from some more maybe important things that are more important for the entire overall health of the game itself, in terms of like new content, balancing, et cetera, et cetera. You mentioned like things like third-party resources, like player, creator, created content. Like Learn Again back in the day made a ton of resources for like learning Dominion, character guides, stuff like that. And I mean, it could just be as easy as making it so we're in the main menu. You usually get stuff like, oh, steel sale, click on this, you get transported to Ubisoft's website to buy some more steel, or Warriors Den's coming on tomorrow, click on this, you get transported to Warriors Den, to Foreigner Game Twitch. It could just be as simple as leaving links inside the game itself to content such as, like, let's say you want to learn Kensei. You go to Learnikins Kensei on YouTube just by clicking a link under the character itself somehow. And that wouldn't be too difficult to implement. It wouldn't be as difficult to implement as making an entire character guide from scratch. So I feel like that could maybe be a better use of their time and efforts. Allowing those resources that the community is actually making itself to be accessible in game, so people can see that, get a quick guide on how to use a character, and then get right back in the game instead of Ubisoft spending months working on something.
Yeah, I think that'd be the best of both worlds. It would be. I think it's a worthy endeavor to try to help the new player experience, but they shouldn't dedicate too many resources out of that. So utilize what the community's already given you.
Yeah.
I mean, they brought over Mistress they hired her so she can start reinforcing tournaments and the idea of
Right.
competitive. So I feel like if they can take it a step further and get Mr. Freeze to start talking about how to play heroes and stuff on the Warriors Den or something like that, where he kind of explains how to deal with mechanics, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just to explain to players every week how to deal with new mechanics and whatever the hot topic is, like maybe Kensei's dodge heavies, I don't know. He can talk about something like that and people can be informed, even though it's like such a hot topic. Even with Orochi's light spam, right? Like when that was becoming a hot topic,
Oh my goodness.
put on the Warriors Den, say this is how you deal with it, easy, and people start
Oh!
echoing these tutorials.
Yeah, so what you're saying, I just had like a bit of an epiphany. So what they do, take 5 minutes, or during their transitions, take like a little tip that's going to help players with the game, and maybe like a small like clipper of how to do it or something like that. Yes, their transitions, all their new executions and stuff, that's fantastic. That's great. People love it. Maybe you could still do that, but at the bottom of the screen, you could put a tip like, how to avoid Orochi light spam. Block! That's how you do it. You just block.
So you want loading screen tips during the Warriors Den?
Hey, it's better than nothing, okay? I'm just saying that it's something that shows that they care about the new players, and it is something. There is actually a lot of people like that, right? There are not a lot of people like that. There's a lot of those little tips that are, that are regarding revenge and stuff that people never read in the chat. That are never going to read in the game. Even newer players, they don't care. They're not going to read that.
Yeah,
but
right.
if it's on the Warriors Den, the people that attend that actually care about the game are going to actually pay attention to it, even if they meme on it. Even if it helps one person.
I think, again,
what does it hurt?
it all ties back into kind of what I'm getting at is how much is this actually going to help? Like, who
That's
are
true, but
new
how does it gonna hurt?
players watching the Warriors? I know it's not going to hurt, but great, they do all this stuff for suggesting, and what happens then? Nothing, maybe.
Maybe
you know?
nothing.
I understand Norgoz's logic on that and where Fatal was going as well. Like, if they're gonna be watching the Warriors Den anyway, if are gonna put that stuff, if they could put that stuff in, if they're gonna be watching the Den anyway, might as well learn something while watching it. But the greater question there is, do they have a reason to want to get better at the game? There's a lot of people, like we mentioned, who just want to play the game casually, just to have fun. Shoot the shit after work with their friends, play for a couple hours, and they're done. They don't care to get better. They don't have any reason behind they don't have any reason to get better. So what if Ubisoft were to host a league with cash prizes every season? For Honor has seasons every couple months. Why not host a league? Teams compete in various modes like 1v1s, 2v2s, 4v4s, probably 2v2s and 4v4s going forward. Immediate future if it was going to happen. But offer cash prizes, give people a reason to want to learn, to want to get better.
I
Other
see
than
where you're
just
going
saying,
with
"Oh,
this.
here's a tutorial. Watch it if you want."
I see where you're going with this. I like that idea, and I think this all goes. I think we can all agree that everything that we've been discussing comes down to one simple yet complicated and complex thing: resources. Is it going to be worth the resources to do any of the things that we have brought up, suggested, and is it going to be something that upper management, the financial individual, the people that handle the finances, are they going to approve these things? And I've said this for years. And when it comes to games or businesses,
Let Lord Dem fund it.
or let Lord Dim. You know what? Lord Dim is our savior. Okay, Lord Dim
Love that guy.
is the greatest. Okay, so with that though, I've been saying for years though that one of the biggest issues that I think game development, that any business tends to have, other than outside of basic stuff like how they treat their employees, do they show appreciation for the employees, do they give them benefits, all that stuff. In terms of, and this all kind of comes back to it too, finances. The people that are at the tip top of the iceberg, they're looking down, and all they really want is results. And they don't care about the experience as much as they care about the results. And if they don't understand how something is going to potentially affect, even positive or negative, they're not going to approve it. And that's one thing that I don't know how it is in behind the scenes with For Honor's development, but I'm just kind of speaking generally that this all comes down to resources and the question of whether or not they would be willing to invest in any of the things that we've brought up. But the thing is that we're bringing up ideas. We're throwing out suggestions. Now, maybe they're right, maybe they're terrible, maybe they're wrong, but we're throwing stuff out there, and we're trying to, in an indirect way, we're basically opening the dialogue and opening the door and saying, Ubisoft, here it is. This is what we brought to you. It's up to you what you want to do with it. So, before we move on to our next section in regards to hero balancing, Setback, you look like you were kind of holding on to something there for a second. Did you want to add anything else?
Hold on, I'm trying to make my mic, the filter for my mic, match up with your overlay. It's like a straight black line coming out. I think I got it. Okay, that's pretty good.
Oh, I like that. That's very yeah. That's pretty dope.
I'm sorry, what were you saying? I was holding on to something. Not really. I think,
Hold on for
I
a hero.
said, I think that, like you said, it all comes down to finances and also diminishing returns. They're gonna, like I said, it's the new player retention experience is not an exact science at all. It's very fickle, and a lot of new players aren't even going to interact with any sort of help or tutorials at all. They're just going to come in, they're going to die a couple times, get mad, and leave. And a lot of that is the nature of the beast because it's a fighting game, and it's not a traditional fighting game by any means. But if it's somewhat complex, it's gonna have a learning floor that they have to hurdle over and get on top of before they can start excelling and getting better.
Going at it.
And it's hard to get past that for a lot of people. So it's almost like it's worth maybe using the community to help teach people because the resources are already there. The material's already there for the most part. They just have to, ask community and, maybe sponsor them and promote them, work with them together. That would be a low cost way to get that kind of stuff out there. But at the end of the day, I don't think that's going to pull a Rainbow Six Siege and all of a sudden we're going to be having $500,000
Or
$1 million
Warframe.
tournaments and stuff.
or like a
Yeah.
Warframe. You know, Warframe came. We talked about Warframe during the last podcast, and so some of which what Setback brought up about Rebecca Ford talking about their balance in terms of new stuff, repairing old stuff, you know, and maintenance and all that good stuff. And it's a balance. It's really hard to find. And I said it last week, and I'll say it again. It's extremely difficult to find a balance with this game because it's a different dynamic. It's a unique game, right? And on top of that, you have the unique dynamic of our community is so outspoken that it's hard to make changes and not expect some kind of backlash, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. We tend to just react before we actually give it a chance to work or not work. That's what this community tends to do a lot of, and that's partly again what brought us to this podcast. I want to take this opportunity again to thank all of you guys for coming. I'll reintroduce ourselves. I'm your host Norgoz. I'm here Tuesday through Friday, and right now we're doing the Warcry podcast with Setback, Raven, and Fatal. All three of them are awesome individuals. Setback is a Twitch partner and a very scary motherfucker right now. He is a very entertaining individual. We have Raven, who's the tournament founder and organizer of For Honor Arena, and Fatal-Feit, who is known as a highly competitive, highly skilled individual, and he's recognized through Ubisoft as an expert in regards to all things For Honor related. We're going to get to that more later, guys. That's we're going to get more in depth with that later on. So moving on to our next topic, hero balance. One thing I wanted to talk about that's still a hot topic. We all know it was coming. Raider. It's still an issue. The stunning tap is the main complaint. Since Raider got its rework in this last season, it's been what, 2 months now, roughly. We've seen a few more changes. We've seen the stamina adjustment that went into play. We've seen the stamina nerf to Raider. We have like 20, 20, 30 respectively on the stamina, flat stamina drains on his charge, on his wall knee is, or rather his stunning tap, and then his knee to the wall. I may be off on the numbers, but it's like 20 and 30 for each of those, I believe now. So, and they're all flat numbers. So no longer are we going out of stamina when we're getting thrown up against the wall through the charge. That's fantastic. But one of the things that I want to talk about, and it's the stunning tap. Why? And again, I want to say this. So even if I know the answer to this, even if I think that it's one right or wrong, I still have to ask the question. And the question is, why does he need stunning tap? Fatal.
Because every hero needs an opener. I mean, stunning tap I think is really one of the coolest concepts for a hero to have as an opener, because it's not only does it set up, it can chain and it can continue to enhance every other part of his moveset. You know, his zone stunning tap into a side heavy. People aren't going to intuitively block that unless they predict it. And I think honestly every hero just needs to have a stunning tap in some form. I'm not talking about adding a daze to every hero. I just feel like that amount of pressure and mix up that and the ability to allow every part of your kit to feel to work holistically, it's really well. And I feel like their idea of focusing on that stunning tap and allowing it to allow every part of his kit to work together that was a good idea. It's just I feel like one of the issues people have right now is that they're dying too fast. And I think we all can agree that For Honor, like Raider does deal quite a considerable amount of damage, but not just that. Everyone's health in For Honor is just a little bit low. So with Raider having a bit of a high damage and everyone having low health, he kills them pretty fast before people can really learn to adapt to the other player, before they can really realize this is how this player plays. I need to adapt this way. They're losing half of their health as soon as they realize, they can try this strategy or another. And I feel like it's just part of the issue is more so that this mix up is being added to For Honor when For Honor isn't ready for it. And while at a high, like at a competitive level for all of us, we can react to stunning tap, we can parry it or block it. Like it's not a huge issue for us. We know how to react to it. But 90% of player base, they just aren't there yet. They are still playing. They're still having issues with Orochi light spam. So adding stunning tap to that, I can see why a lot of people are complaining, but I feel like it's good for the game, and they just need to, at some point, they just really need to increase health for everyone and maybe lower the damage per raider. But that's my input for it.
I think there's a lot of there's a really lot of good information in there. It looks like we're getting some ups all around. Really good points. I do want to piggyback off that and mention this before I forget it. It's something that was brought up in chat, and it's something we were going to bring up during this portion. And Freeze did make a video about how yesterday's patch on Thursday did. Now we don't know if this is an inadvertent change. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's an inadvertent change, a bug, something that took place that changed Raider's stunning tap so it's actually showing a 367 at most indicator right now, or delayed at 33.3, which it can also be delayed. So you got up to 333 now. It acts as like a hard feint in a delay, or hard feint in a follow up, so you can delay it. So that's kind of a different dynamic. I noticed it yesterday, and I thought I was crazy. I was like, okay, I'm tired. I've had a drink. What, this person's 70 ping, and it's just happening faster than what I think it is, I guess. And apparently I wasn't crazy, because once I saw Freeze's video, I'm like, okay, that explains why we're having the stunning taps happen so fast. We're talking about the side heavy or top heavy, either one, I guess. The feint, the soft feint into the stunning tap. That's what we're talking about, in case anybody's lost or anybody's confused. I'm playing drunk and blindfold trying to block this top stunning tap, and it's just not happening. So, I blame whatever I can. But ultimately, apparently, it was legit. So I'm sure that's going to get fixed, just so nobody cries out in pain or gets upset or anything like that. I'm sure that's going to be adjusted, especially
Reddit's
because
already very upset.
I'm sure Reddit is completely flipping their shit right now. And Reddit posted a meme that we might go over briefly here in a minute. But what your follow? Does anybody have the follow up on the what Fatal was saying from Raven?
I'm not
Anything
gonna
to
lie,
add?
I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I'm momentarily okay. I remember. I do think that Fatal touched on a really important point, that a lot of the community is still struggling with Orochi, Orochi light spam, which is, with console being locked at 30 FPS, having massive input delay, somewhat understandable. Especially like we've touched on previously, there are some new players coming to the game, so it's understandable that some players are going to have issues with things like that. But there's also a big majority that has been playing the game for some time that is also still struggling with things such as that. And I think it's really healthy to push the game into a more of a, listen, you're gonna have to try and react fast. You're gonna have to like try and improve in order to combat these things. Otherwise, you're gonna get just lost in the dust. I think that lowering the skill floor is not a bad idea. Actually, raising the skill floor, it's not a bad idea, and lowering it, like they did with some past things, like the Aramusha nerf. They took out that confirmed light. I don't think that was, going to bring in any more players. Like Setback said, oh, Aramusha's confirmed light no longer exists. Oh, hell yeah, I'm going to get back into 400 now. Seems like the best time. That didn't bring anybody in. Let's be real. So I definitely think that raising the skill floor is a good idea, because that kind of just forces players to at least try and adapt. At least try and adapt.
I would say it's almost like you want to make the skill floor lower but raise the ceiling, because I think it's like the current issue is that the game's very obtuse. It doesn't. Everything is very weird and clunky in a lot of ways, and so you need to have like X amount of required information to excel at the game. If you don't have the information, you're not doing your punishes correctly, you're not winning one of the X's occasionally, you just have to have this base level of knowledge, and there's a good chunk of it compared to a lot of other games. But once you hit that, then going from that high floor to the ceiling isn't that big of a jump. So it would almost be nice if they lowered that floor, but then also raised the ceiling, so good players could excel in different unique ways and different play styles, but newer players could start getting to the point where they can excel and learn and develop their own play style and stuff.
So my question with that, with both of you guys have talked on raising the skill floor or the skill ceiling, either or both. And my question to you is, how exactly will we see that transpire? Will we see that transpire with more balance to characters' kits? Will we see that with changes more to the base mechanics of the game, like stamina drain on certain attacks or defensive maneuvers or something like that, or ultimately other changes to revenge or other things?
Like there's a lot of way. Like ultimately the one of the more comprehensive ways would be 5 Honor comes out, 4 Honor 2, but that's a completely different conversation to have.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the current game, I don't know. There's so many things that I mean, that's a dilemma, right? Is there's lots of ways they could go with that, and
I think
there are a
that kind
lot.
of I'm
Go
sorry, I didn't
ahead.
mean to cut you short. I think that kind of goes back to what we were talking about before with game development. Is that there's a lot of things that they could do to change the dynamics of the game. There's a lot of things they could do to help with new players and whatnot. That is it comes down to, again. I think it also does come down to resources.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think what Fatal said earlier touches upon some stuff they could do, like raising health across the board somewhat, and then
That's
stamina as well. I
Yeah,
think that
I
would
agree.
go a long way in helping. Like Fatal actually brought up a really good point, which was when let's take 1v1s for example. Much as a meme as they are, there's very little like learning each other's habits and patterns and stuff, because you screw up once and you lost half your health against certain characters. So if you could screw up several times but then learn from that, but then they learn from you as well, that's what fighting games is all about, right? Is getting your opponent's head. There's not so much of that in 1v1 situations in For Honor, and a lot of that has to do with the small stamina and health pools. So maybe that could be a way they could raise that skill ceiling while not affecting the floor. Ideally, I think we want
I
the
kind of
floor
like that.
lower so people can understand the game and start getting better at it more quickly and efficiently. But this would be a way to at least raise the ceiling.
I like that, and I think that I do believe that the development team seems to be headed in somewhat in that direction in terms of trying to test these stamina adjustments. I think we've seen that recently with the recent stamina changes, where out of stamina, you're no longer getting your stamina drained when you're getting hit or bashed or anything of that nature. It's only getting paused when you're actually getting your hit or bashed or otherwise. So I think that we are starting to see that. I don't know when or if we'll see an increase in stamina, but I think that might be next on their list, and I think that they might be waiting to see how this is going to turn out first. And so I don't, if that's something we see happen, I don't think it's going to happen for a while. I think they're going to wait and see. They're going to do a wait and see approach with it, which is what they do with a lot of things. It seems like, again, from our perspectives. And again, this goes into community perception of everything. I think that they're going to take a wait and see approach, see how exactly those stamina changes happen, and maybe we will see something like that. But I think that's what might be next on their docket. This is, of course, I don't like to speculate that much, but I think that there's evidence to say that that's the direction that they're starting to move in terms of that. So I would say that may be the next direction they go in. Um, I thought there was somewhere else I was going to go with this, but go ahead, Raven, follow up.
I was just gonna say that I don't think anybody would mind being able to attack more. I don't think anybody.
I mean, to jump on that, I think something to understand is that yes, consoles are playing at 30 FPS and there's a huge input delay, but
Mm-hmm.
I think speeding up the game and making people be more durable, the heroes more durable and everything does not hurt console, because if you're struggling to react to an attack on console, that's kind of how Ubisoft wants it anyway. So they're basically just making PC more like that, more in line like that. And when the characters are more durable, then again, people on console has more leeway to learn from that and try to improve and predict. So you
Yeah,
speed up the game, it doesn't hurt anyone.
Yeah, exactly. If
I
you can't
think
react to stuff anyways.
so.
yeah.
I think so. Then I have a question. That can we all agree that, based on all of our experiences, through casual, competitive, otherwise, can we all agree, the four of us, that at this time it seems like two really good options? Then, from what we've discussed, seems like increasing stamina and or increasing the health pools. Can we all agree to that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I brought it up.
Of course.
Just kidding. Yeah,
Uh,
I don't think I think it'd be hard pressed to find someone who would disagree with those two things. But then also, like now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, people have talked about this for a while, just like making the normal feints harder to react to. I mean, console can't react to it right now, so making it so PC can't either, making feints harder to react to would be good. That would all of a sudden make a lot of characters a lot better. The characters who don't need to use just like the normal, 3 stances, heavy feint, light, all that stuff, they don't get that much better. But all the characters that suck with right now, they get a lot better. So that would probably go a long way in helping things out too.
I
And
think
mechanically it makes sense.
Yeah, what I was gonna, I remember what I was gonna follow up on. So what you touched on, Setback, with the increasing of the stamina is something that would help with raising the, you said the skill floor, or did you say the skill ceiling? Either
Well, yeah,
or.
the floor is like basically you need to know at least this to start becoming good at the game. The
That's
ceiling
actually what we
is
probably should have defined: is what is the floor and what is the ceiling.
yeah. So the floor is the required information or skill needed to start becoming proficient at the game, and the ceiling would be if you hit that ceiling, you're as good as you possibly can be at the game. So it's mechanically, knowledge-wise, all that stuff.
So I'm gonna completely ignore where I was going with that. It was ultimately just that I think you made a good point with the with increasing, with helping out with both veterans and new players. That could be a good change. A good question in chat here, coming from the Daddy of Laws. Do they? We're asking about. Are we talking about standardizing the health pool across the board, or are we giving everybody a set increase? And I'm under the impression we're talking about giving everybody a set increase, or maybe not necessarily a percentage, but definitely increasing the health pools across the board. Is that?
Yeah.
Are we on the same
Yeah.
page with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, we're not getting into specifics of like what's the percentage or
Yeah,
how
like
much,
I
flat
agree with that.
amount, but
Trying to get all the percentages and the exact numbers isn't exact science. I don't think any of us I don't think it would be a good idea to jump into that. We would even if we agreed on anything, it would be, well, quick maths on this. 2 + 5 is 9. I don't know how we got that, but we're gonna carry a 3 and pretend it works. Which actually sounds a lot like programming. So I'll go with that. That sounds good to me. So anyway,
I mean, there's some heroes who already has some weird health values, and I think if they're gonna give everyone more health, I'd like them to look at every hero and say, okay, maybe we can increase the health for this person now, things like that.
yeah, I would say that there may be some heroes that may not need one or may not need as much of a bonus. And of course, I think we all know that increasing stamina pools, or another thing, and this increasing stamina pools, increasing health pools, or as an alternative, adjusting the stamina costs, which is what a recent video Freeze made. Again, referencing Freeze. Like this is the podcast of Freeze now. It brings up another discussion of like any of these changes brings up so many what ifs and so many potential for things to break or things to be failures or just complete chaos, either a programming nightmare or just very difficult to balance. But the thing is that at the end of the day, the reason we're talking here today is because we haven't seen the perfect balance yet, and we're trying to figure out as a community, like what are the options, what are things that we can suggest, and what are things that we think of based on our experiences that seem to make sense. And those two changes seem to make sense: the stamina and the health pools being adjusted. So, all right. So moving
Stamina
on.
probably be number one.
Stamina's. I think I would probably
I
agree with
agree.
that. Health pools are not terrible. They're not terrible. I mean, I think that stamina is going to be the bigger thing, because if you can throw more attacks, you can feint more, you can guard break more. That affects all of your ability to attack and defend. I think that makes the most sense, is to tackle that first. And it does. Again, I got to go back to, it seems like I think we have data to suggest that that's what they're looking at now, which is good.
And we're not by far the first people to suggest
I know.
this. I'm
Yeah.
sure Fatal's talked about it
Yeah.
a lot in the past, and I know a lot of competitive players have as well.
We'll get deep into that kind of stuff here in a little bit too. I want to touch on a couple things really quickly, and we'll move on to some behind the scenes here very, very shortly. So again, guys, around the top of the hour, a little bit after the top of the hour, we're going to be talking about the behind the scenes testing, as well as going a little bit deeper into other things that are behind the scenes that we can give you some information about. Of course, there's going to be NDAs that we can't we can't breach. We can't disclose certain information, either from our personal experiences or the guests here, that we can't just give you everything, but we're going to give you what we can give you. You know what I'm saying? And I'm this is a good opportunity for me to reintroduce the cast. I'm your host Norgoz. If you're just now joining us, this is the Warcry podcast. We do this every Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific as Setback drinks his drinky drink. And of
Almost
course,
done.
oh baby, let's go. Everybody chug right now. So I'm your host
All right.
Norgoz, and I am joined here with the cast of drinkers. Setback, Raven, and Fatal-Feit. All awesome individuals, and I was gonna say all are competitive. At least Fatal and Raven are definitely highly competitive. Setback, I think you've dabbled into the competitive world once or twice, haven't you?
One, like right when the game came out, I did the qualifiers for
The
the
ranked stuff.
1v1 stuff, and I around. Let's see, I've had to fight Scorebrand's Warlord and then Barache's Warlord, day 1 and 2, and I was like, yeah, I'm done. I was playing Valk.
Valkyrie.
I took a map
That's
off of
ballsy.
Scorebrand though, so big unlock tech.
Big
All right.
deck.
So to kind of piggyback what we were talking about earlier in regards to Orochi light spam or Raiders stunning tap, overall, generally speaking, fast. So what some people would call fast attacks, and I say that with air quotes and loosely because what we would consider fast attacks, because we're experienced players. Not that that's not that we're the best. I'm not saying that we're the best. Raven might say he's the best because he's got the ego of Mario trying to save Peach from the castle. I'm sorry, they're in the other castle. You got to keep going, Raven.
I mean, technically, I'm the third place best.
So you're saying you're Waluigi?
I'm
No, that's Setback.
Hey,
Setback
let's
is
not bring
Waluigi.
Waluigi into this, right?
Is talking about Waluigi TOS or
Yeah, I was gonna say we might get copyright strike for that. I don't know. You never know. Anyway,
he's inherently sexual, so yeah, I would think that's against TOS.
oh,
Yeah.
well, interesting.
just speaking
Good points.
his name
Good
invokes a
points.
certain sense of sexuality.
I'll send you some literature later, Norgoz. Don't worry about it.
This is the family show, guys. We got to stay on the air. We're trying to make sure that we're being good and wholesome lads. You know what I'm saying? We worship all the great and almighty Savior, which is Mr. Freeze. He is our Savior and Lord. He will protect us from the evil and the darkness, and he will show us all the way through the mechanics and through the light of the tunnel. I love you, Setback. That was good.
Okay, moving along. That was the start of our second hour, by the way. So
Good transition.
thank you. Good transition. So the transition for us overall was we're talking about the light spam and all that good stuff. There's a Reddit meme that's kind of gone wrong, and we're gonna talk about we're gonna briefly touch on this. But next week we're gonna talk. I'm gonna have as one of our big topics next week. We're gonna be talking about the how people play the game and the honor code or not or lack thereof. And I think some people that say this is that they're like, oh well, you got light spam or you know what you got. In this meme, I got a link to it somewhere, but there's this meme, and I still don't know who the hell posted it. It said Kinsey. There was about Kinsey dodge heavy spam, and they're saying that they're just like Orochis that are light spamming, but they're playing Kinseys instead. My question is like, why is it that players seem to feel the need to embrace that why players seem to need to not embrace evolving as people or gamers and work to improve instead of being toxic and trash talking? Why is it that they focus more on the trash talking and the toxicity? I mean, they could just focus on being more effective and improving themselves. I mean, losing doesn't make you a bad person, and winning doesn't make your opponents an asshole. But the moment you start talking shit, you're the asshole, right? I mean, am I reaching here? I mean, if you're talking shit because you failed to block something, and you failed to parry something, that kind of makes you the dick out of the group of, you know what I'm saying? Like, you gotta, at some point in time, you have to take a step back. What I'm saying, I know it's a little harsh. What I'm saying is you got to take a step back at some
It's
point.
not harsh enough. What are you talking about?
Okay, you know what?
I mean, to be
I am
fair, if you
so
spam
sick.
side heavies as Kensei, you're actually toxic.
I am
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pull out iced tea for. I am so sick of this bullshit. This fucking bigotry, the homophobic, the racism, the blah, and all this other bullshit. Don't tell them to fuck their mother with the controller. I am sick of it. I thought that was a great fucking video, by the way. I really did. I thought it was fantastic.
It certainly was something.
It was something, man. It was that. But that's the thing is that it comes back to that they made that video because of all this kind of stuff. So my question to you guys, like, why why is it that players need to embrace evolving as opposed to trash talking? Setback.
What's easier, farming shitty Reddit ups or fucking getting good at a game and practicing and learning from your mistakes? It's much easier to take a fucking meme template, vomit words onto it that are For Honor related, and get fucking 6,000 upvotes.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Does
that's
it
all
really
it
have
is.
6,000 upvotes?
You know, the
I
thing
think-
is go on. Sorry.
That's all, like the type of person, like they're not mutually exclusive. Some evil Redditor who's fucking just taking the meme of the week and slapping a Warden helmet onto it. It could actually be a good player, probably not, but they're not mutually exclusive things. But the type of person typically who's trolling the For Honor subreddit looking for upvotes is probably not the type of person who's watching Freeze's videos and trying to get better.
Well, the thing I want to
So-
the thing I want to bring up, and this is something that I wanted to bring up as part of the discussion. Now, I don't know this player. I don't know anything about him, and it doesn't matter to me. Who they are, what they do, whatever. It's the points remain the same. But I don't. My point of what I'm going to bring up here though is that I don't know if they're memeing just to meme or if they actually truly believe what they're memeing. I thought it was so far fetched. I thought it was hard. It was hard for me to believe that somebody would actually say that intentionally. But the thing is, the point remains, there are people out there that do have that thought process. So the meme is valid in that sense. There are people that are out there that have that thought process. And that's ultimately what I'm coming to.
Yeah, no, you're right. There's actually people who legitimately believe that, and that could have been one of them. It could have been like a competitive player alt account, seeing how many upvotes he could get. Could have been a secret agent, but yeah, it very well could have been someone who legitimately thinks that dodge heavy, as Kensei, is way too strong, and I think that person is beyond saving at that point. So we probably should just maybe ignore them.
Fatal, care to comment?
I mean, I'll just be reiterating what I did before, which is like, I think it happens because people don't know the game, and the game doesn't do a good job of teaching players how to play the game. Like the game doesn't promote a mindset of learning. To be honest, I feel that's one of For Honor's biggest issues is that you look at the tutorials, you look at the way they interact with the community and stuff. They don't really teach you or tell you, hey, you should get better at the game. They just kind of say, if you want to cosplay, you get to come to an event. If you want to draw art, then that's 2K upvotes. You want to make memes, we'll put down a Warriors Den. Ubisoft isn't doing a good job of making players think critically about their gameplay. They don't promote enough. They're trying now, with Mistress and everything, but they still need to push further and making players look at the game and reflect on being better players instead of just thinking they should just go on Reddit and do upvotes. Because for some people, that is the game. For a lot of people, the majority of people, Reddit is For Honor for them, and that's the issue is that the game doesn't, promote learning or anything like that at all.
So I don't. Hold on, really quick. So you said majority of people, it's For Honor subreddit. I say that's probably not true at all. I think it's very small. Even though For Honor Reddit is actually semi, populated with viewers and posters. In the grand scheme of things, the For Honor player base, it's a pretty small percentage, I think.
You're saying
I
it's
think-
a
I
wild crowd
agree with
then.
that. Yeah, the interactive, the players who actually want to go out their way to interact with a video game, like that's probably like 3%, right? They
Yeah.
but they kind of like showcase what the mindset of everyone else. They like they're such a small scale, but you can also kind of see it as like if this huge amount of portion of players is thinking this way or reflecting the game in this kind of way, then you can kind of assume that's how a lot of players are, and that's why we have a lot of players who are toxic in chats and say,
It's
"Why are you
actually, I think,
thinking?"
even scarier than that. I think these are the people that are engaging with content outside of the game for Honor. So that probably means they're more familiar with the product or been playing it longer or more passionate about it, right? So
Yeah.
that means there's what even with how bad a lot of the Reddit posts are, there is a huge majority of people who have even like less knowledge about the game. The vast majority are even worse than the average Redditor. Like that's
Look,
actually terrifying.
I just want to say, like, just recently I had someone told me, for 1v1 is important in 4v4 because there's a renown that says honorable kill, right? And this is one of those reasons. There's just, like, the game needs to teach players, like, the developers have to be more transparent, like remove this remove
Yeah.
this renown from the
Yeah.
game. They need to be more transparent. Say, this is actually not how you play the game. We need to change it so players think, okay, actually I do want to gank with people when I'm in 4v4 instead of adding these little tidbits that only further the Reddit mindset.
Yeah. Like I keep coming back to how how worth it would be to help new players out and stuff, or inexperienced players or players who are bad, help them get better. And I still think it would be really hard to justify any resources spent towards that. But yeah, there is actually just so many things that just mislead people, and especially if they would have done this early on, I think it would have had a much bigger impact. But there's just so many little things that it would just take, editing a line that was like, just remove this description from a feat, or just use community created content to replace the terrible outdated like videos that are in the game.
I think a lot of
Like,
our answers to a lot of these problems is exactly what you're saying. Is like utilize the resources that are available to you, content creators. We are willing and able to provide up-to-date information about heroes, about modes, about basics, advanced. There are specific creators that are out there. Some of them have already made some videos about XYZ hero, XYZ mode. And if you want to have an official one made, it might already be made. You just have to, pay them a flat fee or pay them royalties or something like that for the rights to use it and license it and throw it in the game. That's something that I feel like that's a really good resource that maybe potentially Ubisoft is not utilizing as much as they could be. But again, there's all that whole finance and all the other what if bullshit that I don't want to go into. But Raven, you've been, looks like you've been holding on to something. I want to give you a chance to comment.
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to, just kind of being a little bit more outspoken, holding each other accountable. Like when it comes to like the Reddit memes, stuff like that, a lot of people are gonna see that meme and be like, oh, don't be dumb. You just block, stupid. You need to just dodge. I mean, like, people are gonna get a little bit mad when they see stuff like that. People are gonna get frustrated because, like, oh, this is very basic things that you can easily counter if you just put a little bit of time and effort into it. And I think we just need to maybe be a little bit more patient with each other, a little bit more understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that we were all at that point at one point where we were struggling with very basic things like Kensei side heavy dodge attacks, things like Orochi light spam. I know there was definitely a point where that I was struggling hardcore with Orochi back in the day. And, for new players, things like that are going to be difficult to deal with because, again, For Honor is a brand new kind of game. The game really like it. Setback mentioned way early in the stream that, shooters are fairly intuitive. You play a shooter, you kind of know what to expect. You point at a person, you click the mouse button or the trigger and hope you kill them. And people playing Call of Duty or Halo, whatever, are going to be used to the same kind of experience. And the big issue with For Honor is that there's no other experience that's comparable. I mean, maybe like Dark Souls, somewhat. That's kind of how I learned about For Honor, got into it. But besides that, there's nothing that's comparable. So, of course, in retrospect, yes, as a player, it's a lot more productive to, instead of going on Reddit and bullshitting about how Kensei side lights are OP or side heavies are OP, to try and figure out what you can do to counter that. It's a lot more productive, but is the average player gonna, invest a significant amount of time to try and do that? Probably not.
Probably not. Yeah.
I mean, as a community, all we can really do is try and, when we see stuff like that, say, hey, this is what you can do to maybe deal with that a little bit better, or this is what you can do to counter this move, et cetera, et cetera. And there's people on Reddit who will say that.
There's people in game that'll do that too.
Exactly, but there are also the other half who shit on that person, and that's not okay in any capacity. Number one, don't be a dick.
I think we can all. I think we all agree. Can we all agree that when it comes down to playing against other players, that again, to quote Ice-T's video, I don't mean to be memey or anything on it, but to quote Ice-T's video, saying "good game, good fight" doesn't cost you anything. Can we all agree to that? It costs
mean,
it costs you nothing. It doesn't hurt you. It doesn't make you look like a dick. It actually just, it can even deflect some of that toxicity away from you. I mean, if you can just kind of ignore the trash talk and just take a step back and look at what you're doing. What are you doing stuff right? Are you beating them?
Are you locking them down?
Are you locking them down? Are you knocking them out? Are you taking them are you taking them to task? Are you What the hell did I miss? Is there something that I should know?
Fine. I thought Raven popped his tier 4 on Kensei really quick. Sorry.
Just remember to lock them down. That's all I gotta say. Just lock them down.
All right. Okay, so I want to ask one question and moving into behind the scenes. One question, yes or no, starting with Setback. Public test servers were recently brought up in our last show. Do you think they should be brought back, yes or no?
If it doesn't cost a lot, sure, but I don't think. I mean, when they had them, they didn't seem like they utilized them too much. But
Okay, Raven.
Kind of echoing what Setback just said. If it's not like taken away from any of the resources that they need a little bit more to improve the game, I'm all for it. If it's gonna, help ease the quality control process and make it so that there aren't like big old bugs that appear at the end, starting every new season, stuff like that.
I'm really interested to hear your answer, Fatal.
Yes, because the people who participate in these tests are they listen to, like, when there's a majority of people who echo the same thing in these tests, they listen to it, and the people who do participate in these tests are players who actually do care about the game and do put a lot more time and effort into it to want to see what's up. So, like, for example, you look at the public test for Woolens, there's a lot of players who echo the same thing and they were able to make adjustments and turn that from that test. So I'd say it's really very, very worth it, in my opinion.
So then, let me as a follow-up then, Fatal, because again, for those of you in the community that don't know Fatal-Feit, he has done a lot of behind-the-scenes testing directly with the Ubisoft team. And that's one of the reasons that I brought him on the podcast tonight, because he knows a lot of things that we might not know or we might not ever hear about. And I wanted to bring him on to share some of those experiences tonight. So if you can elaborate on that, on the just public test servers for now, elaborating on that with your experiences with that, can you tell me, do you know about roughly how many people typically participate in these public test servers?
I actually don't. I'd say like maybe 1,000 or two, like whichever measurement
that's
they make over
significant.
there. It's whatever they say. It's probably what it is. But I will say that compared to bringing say 5 or 10, about 5 to 8 people of like people like myself to the studio, like we say something, it's sort of like a back and forth, and it's a maybe it will happen. But then if you do a public test like this, or just a private test where it's like a sizable portion, like 100, 200 to 1,000, if people echo the same thing, then they start to realize, yeah, we need to change something. Now, when you open it to the huge scale of the player base, now when they say like Orochi light spam is too good, then it's harder for them to listen, right? Because there's too many players, most newbies, most intermediate. Only few are actually good at the game. But when you do private tests like this, most of the players participating do know the game, do want to participate in these things. They go out their way to participate in these things, and so they're more open to listening. So, in my opinion, it's probably one of the best things they could do if they want to further interact with the community.
I want to touch on the player population with what you just mentioned. Say roughly 1,000 people participate in these player test servers. The last few months have been roughly averaging about 5,000 players on Steam. You can verify this through looking at the Steam charts. I'll see if I can get a copy of this. I think this should be for the last year. If it's not, you can filter it, right? Theirs is in chat or in the VOD, or in the description on YouTube. And that right there is the last year for Honor, just For Honor. Now, I want to talk about how this compares to other games. Okay, For Honor compared to Street Fighter V, Tekken 7, Mortal Kombat 11, all very predominant games in the fighting game community. I think we can all agree that those are names that specifically stand out amongst the crowd. For Mortal Kombat 11, the most recent one to come out. So let's go back for a moment if we can. April 15, 2019. For Honor is sitting at 7.2 thousand players on average on Steam. Street Fighter V is 1.7. Tekken 7 is at 3.5 thousand people. Okay, moving forward to when April 22nd comes out, when Mortal Kombat 11 releases. Mortal Kombat is sitting at 27.3 thousand. 300, give or take. At that point, who cares, right? 27,000 people. What do you think For Honor's at? For Honor was at 7.2 thousand a week before. Did it go up? It did. It went up to 8.5 thousand. I'm actually going to copy and paste this in there for you guys, too. This is the data and the comparison here in the chat. And that didn't take for some reason, but you can copy it and paste it. So it was 8.5 thousand. Street Fighter 5 was 3.6. Tekken was 3.3. So Street Fighter even took a jump up. So Mortal Kombat coming out actually increased the. I mean, just looking at the data, more people were playing other fighting games just because Mortal Kombat came out. Moving forward, April 29th, a week later, Mortal Kombat dipped almost 10,000 players. They're at 19,000 at that point. Tekken 3.7. Street Fighter 2.7, For Honor 12.5 thousand people. 12.5 thousand people, guys. It went up. Next week, does it go down? Does it go up? What happens? Mortal Kombat. This is the last one, guys. I know for some of you that are like, oh, data, it's boring. This is the last one. Mortal Kombat goes down significantly to 11.7 thousand. For Honor's at 9.2. It goes up again. And then Street Fighter and Tekken's about the same. Those two don't even matter. And of course, if you look at it at this point, what game has more of a more consistent average player base compared to all four of those? It's For Honor. 5,000 to 6,000 every month. So can we please stop fucking saying dead game, LOL, 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 lol. This is the dumbest shit. Please. This is where I'm being a little frustrated. Can we please stop the dumb meme about dead game? This is the biggest fighting game complete with some of the top four contenders for the fighting game community. This is all based on just Steam numbers, by the way. That's not even including the Uplay dynamic, okay? That's not even including Uplay. Fatal, do you have some data on that at all?
Well, I can't say what the numbers are, but
Okay.
like just to add to that, like Steam is actually the lower amount of players compared to Uplay.
Yeah.
Uplay is like 70% compared to Steam. Like Steam is like 30%, Uplay is 70%. So I'm just saying, For Honor is far from dead. Like I said, there's always players playing the game. New players are joining it every day. It's just how do you make players play it at a competitive level? They just have to keep players sticking to the game, and there are a lot of players who do it. It's just
You just gotta send him G Fuel, man. That's all you gotta do.
yeah.
All right, so
Subscribe to Norgoz for 3 months and you get a canister of G Fuel delivered to your house.
Oh no.
Use the code Warcry.
Well, G Fuel, if you want to talk about that, I don't know what to say about that, to be honest with you. I don't know if I would do that or not. I don't know that I would do that. I can tell you this though. So we talked about the numbers. Does those numbers surprise any of you guys? I don't know if any of you guys looked at it before the show.
I briefly leafed through them. The 12,000, the increase in numbers after Mortal Kombat coming out actually does surprise me. Because you would think that people who were playing For Honor would, see Mortal Kombat coming out and kind of just like, oh, I'm going to play Mortal Kombat for a couple of days and see what's up in the new game. So the fact that For Honor got more players in that time is actually interesting, for sure.
It's a surprising time, apparently, for I think a lot of us here in chat. Like it's. I know that it's. I'm sorry. I'm still a little frustrated with with the whole dead game kind of thing.
Well,
and I know that there's always
if it's not Fortnite, then it's a dead game.
Yeah,
and
pretty much.
Then all the same people wish Fortnite was dead, so they just want everything to be dead.
They just own themselves, right? So one thing that was brought up that I think that is relevant to say out loud is that we are comparing online games in comparison to tournaments around the world that may have a big presence that may not be taken into consideration because they're all based on LAN or whatnot. But still, overall, if you look at the total, does that really matter? Do we really have thousands and thousands of people that are going to these tournaments at any given point that's going to drop the numbers on the average player base to the point to where For Honor would still not be on top? I don't think so. I would firmly say I don't think so. I would firmly say no. So I want to talk about but did any of you guys have anything to add on that or anything else before we go deeper into the behind the scenes portion of the show?
The one thing I had to add was I think a lot of people don't think about that comparison to other fighting games, but that's from like the consumer standpoint. But from like the industry standpoint or the Ubisoft standpoint, I'm sure that's a nice number in comparison to make for them. But at the same time, they're looking for that next kind of Rainbow Six Siege moment. Looking for the game to turn around in a big way. And so, number wise, that's probably. I mean, I think that's why they've, actually spent so many resources and, had so much people work on the games because they saw something there as a new market and they wanted to turn around in a big, huge way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to have to keep that in perspective. Or I think a lot of people, like I said, consumer player base wise, they don't realize that it's nowhere near dead. But at the same time, on an industry level, it'd be interesting to know how Ubisoft feels about that and stuff like that. So
Before we move on, I
industry-
kind of want to ask. Oh, go on. Finn.
You go first. It's all right.
No, that's fine. You go first. I'll keep it in the back of my mind.
I'll just say that from an industry standpoint, you reflect on how Ubisoft's looking at For Honor. It's not a game they want dead. Like they are they
absolutely.
are 100% super proud of For Honor. Like they actually really like where it's going to a point that Justin Kruger from Rainbow Six Siege, he actually swapped over to For Honor. Like this guy who brought Rainbow Six Siege up and where it's at, who does all these tournaments and stuff. Like they've now moved him to For Honor, and not even just him, they brought Mistress along. And so, if the game was dying, if they were just thinking year 3 would be the last, they wouldn't hire these people. They wouldn't bring them along. So I can even say like for sure that For Honor's probably going to go further into like year 4 or 5 or even 6. Like they are looking forward to improving For Honor in the future and really make it even more popular and maybe more tournaments and like actually putting tournaments in the game and things like that. Like I'm sure they're investing a lot more in the game. Like that's all I can say.
Yeah, that's kind of like where I was. Sorry,
Go
really quick. That's kind of where I was going with it. Is that like they've put a lot of resources into it, but they're still doing that, and I think it's because they're still trying to get that Rainbow Six Siege moment. Where all of a sudden it starts continually climbing. So that's kind of where I was going with it. It wasn't like doomsday, like it's dying, they're abandoning it. It was more like you can still tell things are going on behind the scenes. They're trying to align things in such a way to try to give this game a chance, keep going forward, and to explode.
So
It's
they're
already
playing the
doing
long
okay.
game.
Yeah, it's
So
already doing
playing the long
okay,
game.
but they're trying to also get that big moment where it starts spiking.
Let's come back to Raven.
I was just gonna ask each of you if you think that
Well, hang on
Rainbow
a second.
Six Siege.
Questions. Holy shit. I wasn't ready for this. No, go on. I'm sorry, bro. I wasn't ready for questions.
Raven wasn't ready for the interruption.
I love you, bro. I'm so sorry. That was unprofessional of me. I'm sorry. I love you, bro.
You're good. You're good.
Raven,
No,
just talk. Go ahead.
Something really quick. Setback.
Loud noises.
Do you guys think that Rainbow Six Siege would be nearly as popular if the game had no competitive scene?
That's gonna be hard for me to comment on. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not much into this siege mode, but
I think competitive is a big factor with keeping it in the news and also giving players something to aspire to. And it has like a scene to the point where when people know certain players and they follow them and they consume their content and stuff. So I think, I think of course it helps.
Like having promoting competitive and tournaments in a game is super important to giving people a reason to play. Like I've introduced a lot of people to Siege. I don't play Siege, but I've given free copies to people before, and all I hear from them is like, "Yo, I'm participating in a new tournament. Yo, there's this guy I'm listening who's really good at the game, and he's like, I want to join him in a tournament for once and things like that." Like you hear that all the time. So I honestly can't imagine Siege without tournaments. Like it's just part of how it's so successful in my opinion.
Hey, Fatal, how about those free copies you're talking about?
I think it is important to have a competitive scene in general when it comes to a game that is a PvP based game that's its primary bread and butter. I think we can all agree it is important to have a competitive scene in some way, shape, or form. If For Honor didn't have a competitive scene, I don't think it would be quite as appealing. I mean, sure, we'd have a whole bunch of people that would just be flailing about randomly, but would we still have people that would still try to push to learn and better themselves, I don't think we'd have as many, because we wouldn't have as many many things to many people to learn from, or opportunities to learn from tournaments and stuff of that nature. So I think it certainly had its role in Siege's rebirth, or it being maintained. But as far as like how much or how little, I personally can't talk to that. I can tell you that I played the game a few times. I had a really good time with it. I think for the most part we had a mostly full group, and I didn't have to deal with what a lot of people say, that there's a lot of toxicity in Siege. I never had to deal with that directly. Even if I did some pickups randomly, I never really personally saw that, and I had a blast. It seems like a really really fun game. Shooters were, shooters have been in my life ever since, freaking the original Wolfenstein and stuff, way back when, Doom and that kind of thing. And I would have to say that Siege is a kind of a slightly different experience, but I like it, and I don't know where I'm going with this, so I'm gonna just stop.
I mean, if I can interject just one more time, just to say, like, one thing we all have to just understand as well is, like, For Honor will never be Siege. Like, Siege is a first-person shooter. That's a game that's super intuitive, and anyone can look at it and play it. For Honor is just
Right.
like, it's just completely something different, and it's so we can see, like, I guess when we say like we're waiting for its Siege moment, I can say like maybe double or thrice the amount of player base, but I will never see it reach like the height of Siege. It just can't.
Okay, so let's talk then about game development. Going back as far as several years now, guys. Several years now. I know that I've been in a couple of technical tests that was prior to game launch, prior to even the first closed alpha, and even what I saw back then was impressive. I touched on that a little bit last week, but somebody who's gotten even more experience than I do, in terms of a lot more experience than I do in terms of testing, I don't even compare, is Fatal-Feit. And I wanted to ask you, can you tell us a little bit about your experiences with testing out For Honor, in terms of your relationship with Ubisoft, and of course, without breaching any NDA, roughly how many tests have you been involved in, and how much feedback have you given Ubisoft for Honor?
Uh, I don't know where to start on that. Like, dozens. Like, I've
The
since
beginning.
the initial E3 reveal back in 2015, I think. Um, I went on the forums and I was just a keyboard warrior. Like, I just kept talking and talking about this game, and they were just like, "Hey man, you want to actually play the game for once?" And I was like, "Yes." And so I was testing the game since the Orochi was called the Oni, and the Warden had a thrust attack, like things like that. I just kept like, and that's in the video, so I'm not breaching NDA there, but things like that are just like I've been testing the game more and more since then. Um, everything you guys have played, um, until Hitokiri, or and the Raider rework, like I've dabbled with every feature at least once or twice. Um, I've been in like every alpha, pre-alpha, even friends and family private tests, and I don't even know where to start. Like dozens and dozens of tests. Every test you can think of the game has had, I've been in it, and I've been at the studio 6 to 7 times just testing out many things. Like a lot of people recommend stamina changes. They say like the game can be fixed if you do this or that. Like I've tested many of those. I've tested many things that like Ubisoft, they aren't that ignorant. They know like we got to test stuff, we got to try things. Um I participated in a lot of those, and like it's been a process. My relationship with Ubisoft is it's been really good. They've been very kind to me, but like we don't always agree on things. Just like I mean, there's a lot of competitive players who have difficult times with the idea of Ubisoft not listening to one idea or another, and I have those moments too. But ultimately, they are a team that wants to listen. I think the big issue, to be completely transparent, is that they are a team that's not used to fighting games. I think that's the big issue, is that Ubisoft, as we as a community, was learning how For Honor functions, and how to improve this game. Ubisoft are also learning what For Honor is since season one. They've been learning how For Honor works, and I think we start to reach a point where with season 5 up to season, I believe we're season 10 right now.
Mm-hmm.
Ubisoft has become really good with what For Honor is, and they're learning, and they want to add stuff that the pro players know is good, and so that's where we're seeing things happen where they listen to Mr. Freeze videos and things like that, where they're speeding up the game, even though everyone's complaining about light spamming Orochi. They've been silent about that. They literally go on the Warriors Gen and said, hey, look at tournament play and then tell us that's spamming. Um, they
Yeah.
say like, hey, learn how to play Lawbringer if
I
you're
was gonna-
complaining too much about that.
I was gonna say
Was
that. That was immediately what I thought of is Roman, that moment with Roman. And I think that moment with Roman, not really knowing him personally, I've said this before, he seems like he's got a lot of passion about this game and he really truly cares about it. It's like his baby. And that's kind of seems the way he treats it, because if you watch the way he reacts to people that say negative things about stuff, he has no qualms about doubling down on things. He put himself out there, I don't remember what it was. There was some backlash about something roughly a year ago or something, and he put out this big thing on the forums, and even Pope on the following Warriors, and Roman didn't have to do that, or was that Stefan? I think it was Roman. I was right. It was Roman, I
I'm
believe.
pretty sure it was Roman.
I believe it was Roman. So, but
I mean, just
things,
to add to that, I'm sorry, just to interject one time. Like, a lot of people think his main is the Centurion, but like he actually doesn't even play the Centurion. He went with that meme because it was popular and people were really liking it. He actually plays the Valkyrie.
He lied to us.
Roman's main is the Valkyrie, the weakest hero in the game. Like,
he memed.
just to put in perspective of how development works. Like he took a hit for everyone because everyone needed something to hate. Like, why is this hero like this? We need a person or a thing to really strangle, and then he kind of took the hit for everyone. And so
Ouch.
like I feel like he does get a negative rep that he doesn't deserve. I'm getting off topic here, but like I do think Roman is he's someone who deserves a lot more than the community gives him.
That's what I was leading up to as well. Is that it's just based, like I said, he's passionate about the game. That Lawbringer comment, I feel like that was his way of kind of being like, I'm pissed off, but I'm gonna try and just be like chill about it and just be firm with you guys and say, listen, go figure out how to play Lawbringer and then come back and then we'll talk. That was his way of kind of being like some tough. I think that was a tough love moment for him, and that showed the passion. And I know that he probably bought. I don't like to speculate on this, but I believe if I were in that position, I know I would be bottling up a lot more, because you do so many things behind the scenes, testing, bringing people in, to test things out, getting feedback from the competitive community, doing things yourself directly within the game. It's a lot. It is a lot more work than people probably give him credit for.
Yeah.
Setback, I know you've got a little experience with going to Ubisoft's site. So directly between yourself and Fatal-Feit, I want to ask you first, Setback, and come back to Fatal-Feit. How has Ubisoft treated you every time that they've ever flown you out to Montreal or to E3 or otherwise? How's they treated you personally?
I mean, personally, I fucking love a good, like, everyone I've met there has been amazing. Like Mike, the one on the Warriors Den, I love that man so much. I want to gay marry him so bad.
It is Pride Month.
Him and I smoke so many cigarettes together, and I don't even smoke.
That's what you do
but-
when you get drunk, man. You smoke cigarettes.
Yeah, but no,
among
like,
other things.
yeah, no, every experience I've had, Montreal and then LA,
Trying to stay
E3,
on the
like,
air.
they were amazing. Like personality wise and stuff, like behind the scenes too. I think she was on the Warriors and once, semi recently, Alex. She does a lot of work behind the scenes, and she's incredible too. And then a big reason why the game's moving in the direction that's positive balance wise is Stefan. Like, he's a rock star. Like,
I was just
he's
about to mention him.
like he
I'm gonna
is
give him
a big
spot.
reason why the game is moving in a positive balanced direction. So yeah, everyone I've met there. There's people I'm missing, like Nuke is amazing. Like, there's a whole bunch of people that I haven't met a single person in person that I didn't like at Ubisoft, which is very impressive because I'm a douchebag and I usually don't like people. So
That says something if you like them, then.
mm.
So, Fatal.
I
same
mean,
question.
just to say, like, I'm sorry, just to go on that, like,
Oh,
they're
go
very good people, and it's very hard to dislike them. It's just there are times where you can disagree with them and say this is not a good change, and they disagree with you, and there are moments where like things happen, you just don't agree at all. But they're ultimately it really comes down to them just learning the game as we are. And like I'm repeating myself, but it really does mean a lot that they're learning the game as we are, and that's why it took For Honor so long to reach where it is because it took a while for them to even understand what playing the game is like at a competitive level.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, I think they're almost on the same page as what a lot of the higher level community wants. It's just it takes a while to actually have that materialize in a finished AAA product. I think the issue is that it took a long time to get to that point, and so a lot of the community's patience is already thin. So anytime anything slightly goes wrong, they're like, "Oh, it's just like season 3 or season 2," you know. So
I-
I get that, but I think overall the like there's light at the end of the tunnel, if you will, and it just takes a while to get there. And
Yeah, I think they're playing the long game.
you could
Yeah,
argue that it's too little, too late. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I kind of get where that mentality comes from. But I don't know. I think it's heading in the right direction.
I think the piggyback off of what you're saying is like, you know, a day late or a dollar short or whatever other analogies or metaphors you want to use, it phrases whatever. It comes down to if they're playing the long game and they've got a plan, if they deviate from that to make a very quick, short, you know, abrasive change to the game, it could completely throw off the entire other plans that they've got in the long run. It could, you know, sure, it could help something that's positive, but it could also just completely destroy everything that they're planning going forward. And I think that
like
that's something that we kind of miss.
I wouldn't want to actually be a dev on the game. I can't imagine the nightmare it is managing it.
I can't
all
imagine
the code
it.
and stuff. Like
I mean,
just on seeing the repository probably give me a panic attack.
so I want to ask Raven a question in regards to all this. I want to come back to Fatal on some more in-depth stuff. Raven, I know that you're very much in tune with the competitive scene, and I know that there's a lot of people in the competitive scene that have been getting feedback from that. Are you is that something that you can recognize that either with yourself or with other people, that there's a lot of people that have gotten actually been reached out to from Ubisoft to get feedback on changes?
I would say from what I know, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I was gonna mention earlier, if you take a look at like their seasonal releases for new characters,
Hmm.
you remember back in season 4 when they released the Shaman, the Arimusha, just how different the levels those characters were at. Like Shaman was up here, Arimusha was at, let's say, the skill floor.
Yeah.
And if you think about all the recent releases, you know, the Wulin, Black Prior, Hitokiri, all those have been a lot more consistent in terms of character viability. So I do believe that they're listening to feedback. I do believe that they're learning from their, you know, past mistakes, or say past transgressions. You know, yeah. You know, I think that Roman did DMT not even once, turned into base stuff on, and then there you go. Game got a lot better.
Based.
Based.
Okay, so to get further in depth with and a little more specific with your experiences, Fatal, in terms of like behind the scenes testing and things of that nature, I gotta ask you. So I'm gonna try and I don't want to tiptoe around anything. I'm gonna ask you directly about something, and if you can't talk about it, I understand. What you can talk about, can you give us some ideas of how of what things have been tested in terms of the game? I'm specifically kind of looking at, you know, stamina changes that might have already been looked at, that may have actually gone into the game already, and really beyond that, what are other things that have potentially, or have there been other things that have been looked at in terms of stamina changes, i.e., like stamina on block changes in terms of lights or heavy amounts of stamina being used, stamina pools in general, things of that nature. What can you talk to in regards to that, if any at all?
If it was suggested, it was probably tested. So I can
Okay.
say like it's one of those things where it's like they're aware of what's a good suggestion or what might be a good idea. A lot of things have been tested. Now what I can say is like maybe if we try to game now with the skill that the competitive players are at with these ideas, maybe it'll be different. But you know, a lot of things has definitely been tested, and even for heroes with reworks. Okay, maybe I'm breaching a little bit NDA here, but like, you know,
Well, don't.
suggestions that's been made for some popular heroes, you know, maybe a certain unblockable for a certain light spamming hero has been tested, things like that. And
That's
the
vague enough.
results has ultimately become like, you know, what it is for one reason or another. I can't like I don't want to say anything more specific, but like they try to do what the community asked for. It doesn't work sometimes. Maybe we don't have the solution. Maybe there is a solution, but they just didn't know it, or we didn't know it. And ultimately, like that's just like what we have now is what we have. And I also want to stress that like everything they do, it's not like I agree with it or the competitive players agree with it. Sometimes they do things where we're just like, why did you do this? Like what you had before was better, or we prefer this, and then they still do it anyway. Like um again, I don't know what to
No,
say like as an
you're
example
good.
to
You're good, bro.
pre-gen
I gotta no. So I want to tilt this a little bit. And let's not make that too much of a joke in terms of like the NDAs and stuff. It's not he's not said anything that's I don't believe he said anything that's a breach. There's things that have been suggested that may be considered that could
No, I've
be
already ratted him out.
speculation.
Media police is on the
Regardless,
way.
I mean, either way,
Yeah, I
like
like that a lot, too.
it is what it is what it is. We're dancing around topics, but we're being direct about certain things. And what I want to be direct about is the testing in terms of what your involvement. You've been involved in a lot of hero balancing testing in terms of certain characters. Can you tell me? Have you been involved in the Raider rework? Were you involved in Lawbringer reworks at all? Did you get feedback? Did you get feedback on those?
So for year
And if you
3,
don't want to answer it because so many people are bitchy about Raider, I will totally understand if you say I'm not even gonna go there.
so for year 3, I've actually sort of like passed on from For Honor. I think the Fortager was probably the last hero I really spent time on and reflected on. The Lawbringer was something that was briefly discussed with me as a concept, the rework I mean, and I kind of saw it and I was just like no. So I took it upon myself to really reach out and try to see what I can do to remedy this rework. And it's a lot better than what was proposed, and I think a lot of people aren't as happy about it as what it is, and I can understand that. But some things turned out to work very well, some things don't, some things made it, some things didn't. um but like as far as that Raider rework, I mean that Lawbringer rework went, I do hold myself accountable a little bit for the results. But I'm personally like, he's playable, he's competitive, you can put him in a team match, and if he's there, then that's the result every developer wants, right? I'm not saying that I'm responsible for Lawbringer being what he is, but I do hold myself a bit accountable for like pushing, like kind of pushing
Pushing
towards the
certain
direction.
things. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you say that you single-handedly created the law rework?
Wow.
I mean, like you know, going towards talking about Raider now, it's like I actually had no idea what was happening with Raider. I didn't even know there was a rework for Raider until everyone else did. um, but like I've always wanted, something I wanted to talk about an hour and a half ago is like, we always say like Ubisoft is wrong, Ubisoft doesn't know what they're doing, and listen to the competitive players and things like that. But as someone who's been in development since like probably day one, since they announced it, competitive players aren't always right. Sometimes we have really weird feedback that's like we contradict ourselves, or we actually gave the wrong feedback in the direction the game went south. um, like for example, actually I can't give any other examples, but for in topic, like to stay on topic with the Raider stuff, like they brought us along and they briefly said something where it's like the Raiders, for example, the Raiders dodge GB. I think we all can be in agreement that like the dodge GB is not great, right? Like that had to go with the rework,
At
and,
this,
and we all
yeah.
look at it and we're like, that's a no brainer, right? Like why is that still there?
Mm-hmm.
But let's just say back then the discussion was very different among the competitive players, and the debrief there was like, let's test it out.
Let's
And
give it a
so
test.
here we
Yeah,
are.
makes sense.
Yeah, so here we are, and now they like, all right, let's test it out, and now but the results has changed, and we're just like, actually no, 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 that's bad, let's remove it. um that's just kind of that's just kind of an example where it's like, it's very hard to be in Ubisoft shoes because they don't always know if they should listen to us. um but
They
it's
have to
just food for thought.
they have to pick a direction, and they have to own what the results are. And I personally believe that that Stefan and the team in general made the right call by keeping it in, for the first couple weeks or whatever it was that it was there with the rework. I felt that it's because you have to think about it. If they took out the dodge GB, this brings in the community perception element of this, guys. And I want you to get your guys' feedback on this. So using Raider as an example. So if they were to have pulled dodge GB when that rework took place, we still would have gotten bitching about the stunning tap. Sure. I'm sure we would have. However, at that point in time, they didn't know if it was going to work. And I am a firm believer that I would rather see a character get a rework and be overpowered and be adjusted down and be tweaked than to be underpowered and have to adjust going up. I think it's a lot easier to bring it up and then bring it slightly down than it is to get it to a point and then have to bring it up again. Because some people still argue that Shigoki's not in the greatest place, that it needs another buff. I don't want to bring that. I'm not saying whether it does or whether it doesn't. I'm simply saying that some people are making that suggestion, and it's already been reworked, and I think it's in a pretty decent spot overall. But I'm not really a Shigoki main, so my opinion doesn't matter. So overall, then I think that can we all agree that and if you disagree, that's fine. Like, what do you think that we should have left that in, or do you think it was a better idea rather to have left that in? Can we agree to that before removing it?
No.
Raven?
Dodge GB?
Yes.
Leave it in? Yeah. Before
Fatal?
removing it.
Your personal
No.
opinion? Okay.
Personally,
You think we should have taken it out at the same
yeah,
time with the rework?
I think it should have been removed with the rework. I think
Okay.
it was something some players saw from a mile away, like seasons before this rework, and
Yeah.
the conversation was different back then. But now it's where it's at.
I think, and what I'm leading up to, and I did a bad job of kind of leading up to, is that I believe that because they left in dodge GB, they avoided the conversation. They avoided the people bitching about saying, you know what? Well, you just took out dodge GB. You didn't even give it a try. You didn't even see if that's going to work with the rework or whatever. So you would have had bitching about dodge GB getting taken out, and you would have people bitching about stunning tap. You would have had both sides upset. That's what I think that they made the right call of leaving it in. It was what, 2 weeks? I don't think that hurt anybody.
I mean, I'm glad they removed it within 2 weeks.
Sure.
But who gives a F if some people complain about something that's unhealthy for the game? Like, no matter what they change, there's going to be people complaining about it.
Well, that's what I'm. The reason we all bring all this up is because as part of the end goal that I have with this podcast is to help the community come together and understand. There are things that goes on behind the scenes. There are things that happen that we may not all agree on. There are things that there is a lot of misunderstanding. There's a lack of patience. There's a lack of tolerance within the community. There's a divide. We talked about that last week, and I really firmly believe that the more that this conversation evolves with this community-driven podcast, that I think the more people that get involved with this, the more people that listen to what we have to say, we're kind of a voice for the community, in a sense. And it gives people the sense that they do, not only that they have a voice, but like I said, a lot of the questions that I ask, even if I know the answer to them, I'm asking the questions for a certain reason. I want people to hear from experts, from like Fatal-Feit, from behind the scenes, knowing, hey, there's a lot of testing that goes on when it comes to reworks and changes. When it comes to the more personal element, I want to hear from Setback in terms of how he feels about Shinobi, and whether or not it's a nightmare. I want to hear from Raven in terms of how he feels about the competitive scene, where it's at, and how different changes affect them as well. I want to hear from all kinds of different people in terms of all different types of different topics. And at the end of the day, I do believe that we have a long ways to go, and I think that's what you're saying, is that it's going to take a long way. It's going to take a long time to bring it to get everybody to the point to where we're all on the same page and we kind of are a little bit better human beings. And it's something that I think over time it is going to happen. But is it going to make a huge impact? We'll see. But at the end of the day, is if we don't do anything, nothing's going to happen. So we got to do something, right? So I appreciate you guys joining me for that. I ask one last question regarding our topics, and then we're going to go into our final segment here, where I want to ask you guys a question about For Honor in general. So, do you believe? So we've talked a lot about the behind the scenes stuff, and we could probably even take a separate podcast and do a one-on-one and talk more in depth about that. We've kind of touched the surface and gone a little bit deeper than that. But with everything we've talked about, game development, behind the scenes, player population, and everything, do you believe that more communication regarding these tests or more availability to said tests would help the community better understand the mindset of the For Honor development team? I'm actually going to start with Fatal on this one.
Yes. I honestly, I feel like making a game like For Honor that's a competitive multiplayer game, right? Like, there's no reason to not be transparent. I feel like it's everything you do is you're working with the community. It's not developers working the game, the community enjoys it. It's we built the game together. What they say, what we do, and how we balance the game. It's a team effort between ourselves. So I believe like they should just be more transparent. Just say like, here's what we want to test right now. Can you guys give us feedback? And ultimately, like we can have to say like maybe it's good or bad. But I think honestly, I'd even go as far as to say like the workshops they've done in the past where it's just 4 to 8 people. That's not enough. I feel like it should be like at home test with like 50 to 100 people, um, and allow us to be even more transparent and say like, yo, we're testing stamina changes. What do and this and things like that, because people need more time. People need to be comfortable at home. Not everyone can take like a vacation to the studio, and not everyone has normal time zones and stuff like that. Like just yeah, just like allow them to be more transparent. Let players know what's going on, and let players communicate with the developers more. Like somebody in the chat said, like with the Raider dodge GB, that's from a lack of communicating with us. So make better communication, and the game will ultimately get better. I don't see any downside to wanting to hide stuff from us.
I don't want to bring a negative aspect into that, but I would want to look at this objectively. I can see a potential downside to that, and while I agree that more communication is something that seems like the community desperately needs. At the same time, the objective side of that and the other side of that coin is that, again, I've said before, like, we're super outspoken. And I think the question and the risk when it comes to adding a bigger pool of testers is it does lessen the amount of control that they have over the testing, the feedback from not necessarily the feedback from the testing, but how much is going to be shared. But you got on the other side of that too, you could say, well, that's kind of the risk that you take when you test things with players, regardless of whether they're casual, they're competitive, if they're brand new to the game, or they've been playing the game since day one at launch. That's something that kind of comes with the territory. So I think they have to weigh those pros and cons, and whether or not they got to risk it for the biscuit. And in some cases, I think they got to really push. I think that in a lot of cases, I think they may need to take that leap a little bit, give us a little bit of leap of faith, and I think that would go a long way with the community. I mean, I know that they've done similar things with that in the past, and we are outspoken, but at this point in time, I think this would be a really good time to give us something in terms of a door into their mind, their thought process. Even if they don't involve us in the testing process, give us a little bit more in terms of overall in general, like what you're looking at right now. What are you looking at doing next? I mean, I really think that we need to. Can we all agree on this? Is that right now with the Warriors in the way it is, unless we see something from the Hammer Hero next week, if we're not talking something in regards to game development, I really think they're going to get hammered by the community, and I hate to see that. I really do.
They're gonna get hammered if they don't show the Hammer Hero.
Yes,
really?
They're gonna get hammered. It's stop hammer time. I think we could probably all agree on that. But to follow up on,
they get hammered almost anytime to do anything.
That's true. That's very true.
There's Twitch chat. I mean, there's a bunch of disgusting Setback subs in there. So
that was a bit blunt, I suppose. So follow up.
Oh my god.
So Raven. So then thoughts regarding communication, more or less regarding the testing. Do you think involving more people, a wider test? What's the term I'm looking for? A wider test, not a test group. We'll just say a test group. Though, do you think a broader test group would be, potentially beneficial to the community's understanding of what's going on and feel like they've got more of a voice?
I think it definitely could be. And I say could because I'm not like 100% sure. I'm not a. I'm not
I don't
a
think
seasoned-
anybody is, and that's kind of where
Yeah.
that's kind of why we're all like, it is what it is. But
Yeah.
so you think that go on?
I think it could definitely be. And as far as like any risks go, I mean, I know you mentioned the risk of things getting spread amongst the community, maybe some upcoming things, and I mean when it comes to things being spread that are not released, I don't really think that's going to harm the game. If anything, it just kind of piques more interest as to what the upcoming content is going to be about. No one's really going to see it and be like, oh, I'm not going to play For Honor again because this got leaked. I just
Yeah.
don't think that's going to happen realistically. So I think it could help.
Okay. Then Setback, you to close that out, and then we have one final question to wrap everything up after this. And so go on. What are your thoughts on the communication aspect of all these of all the testing and behind the scenes things?
I mean, ideally, I think most devs want to be as transparent as possible, just like how most consumers want to be as transparent as possible. But at the end of the day,
Agreed.
that's not usually the best route going forward because, I mean, we talked about that terrible Reddit meme, which is of course just one meme and it's just a dumb meme, but like there's things that if they were even just to mention it would just rile up a good chunk of the player base who consumes For Honor content outside the game. So it's really like a scary dance for them to try to let the community in on what they're working on and stuff.
Wait,
because
would you say that it's a
no,
delicate
don't-
dance
no.
of death?
Go on, Ben. Anyways, no, I wouldn't say that because it hurts me physically to say it. But yeah, no, it's a scary thing to be open with gamers because they tend to rise up and throw crap at you. So you just yeah, I
It's
would
like
like
a
them to be more
republic of
transparent.
gamers.
Yeah, I would like them to be transparent, but I completely understand why they are not sometimes. Now, I think they mentioned they're going to be showing the roadmap next week. I think that's a good step in the right direction. I think I'm sure a big chunk of people are going to be mad the Hammer Hero isn't going to be like spoiled right on the stream. That's not going to happen, but that's fine. I think the roadmap's a good step in the right direction. They were just basically coming back from E3 and they just want to do Warriors Den still, but the community didn't want that, I guess. So
Yeah.
but
So we're gonna wrap up here in just a moment, but before we do that, I have one final question, guys, and I'm gonna tell you all what it is. It is how has For Honor changed your lives, and I want to address that individually. But again, if you're joining us here toward the end of the cast, I want to welcome you. Thank you for coming by. I really appreciate it. We're here every Friday at 7 Pacific. The Warcry podcast, meaningful discussions, community-driven topics. I'm your host Norgoz. I'm joined tonight by Setback. He's an Eagle Scout and a renowned MS Paint pro. We have Raven, who's a tournament organizer and founder of For Honor Arena. He's placed in top 3 and top 2 in multiple competitive tournaments recently. And we have Fatal-Feit, who is a very highly skilled player, renowned for his expertise in the competitive scene as well as things behind the scenes and his direct relation with Ubisoft and trying to improve the game that we've all come to know and love. So I want to ask a question to each of you individually and directly. How has For Honor changed your life? I want to first hear from Raven.
No, it's impacted my life more than any other game. The only other thing I could say is maybe Legend of Zelda. So it was a really big defining game when I was younger. Got me into fantasy games, but I mean, it introduced me to the idea of a community because I'd never been a part of a community in any game. So the more I got invested into For Honor, the more I got invested into the community itself, and I made a lot of friends. It I'd say turned me into a more happy person. I formed a lot of great relationships. Became again a part of the community and just made my life better. Besides that, the competitive aspect, it kind of was my first big foray in competitive gaming. Like I started playing For Honor console tournaments a long time ago. Back when For Honor console was doing like tournaments every week, every 2 weeks. Light Boogie was hosting those along with Geist. And so, like, they went through a lull where Light Boogie went on vacation, started hosting tournaments in the South, and that was the first time I ever hosted a tournament. Ever since then, I kind of kept doing it, and here we are today.
And I think that we can all appreciate everything that you've done with the competitive scene. And man, I wanted to tell you, wanted to thank you again for coming on today. It really means a lot to me. I know it means a lot to the community and the competitive scene as well. And again, thank you very much for that. I appreciate you sharing that, man. It seems like it's changed your life a lot. And I think a lot of the things that we've heard with this is the word community. And I'm curious to see if Setback has a similar experience. How has For Honor changed your life, Setback?
It's changed it quite a bit. In some ways, like that's my first game. I really started streaming on Twitch consistently. Was For Honor, and it got me partnered. I've met a crazy amount of people, and I like almost all of them, which again is a rare thing for me. Um, I've gone to Montreal a couple times and went to LA for E3. I mean, that was kind of like a dream come true moment. As a kid, you always watch E3 and see all the games get announced and stuff. And I got to go there, and I didn't have to pay money to go there, and that was crazy. Like, I mean, like For Honor is such a interesting I have such an interesting relationship with For Honor because it's definitely one of the most frustrating games I've ever played, but the highs are really high too. And outside of the game, streaming it and stuff has been such a positive thing for me. And it, I don't regret playing For Honor, even if I occasionally uninstall it in a rage on stream. I still come back to it. I still love the people that watch my stream. I love a lot of the streamers that stream it. I love the community. I love a lot of the people who work on the game. Like, it's been a very positive impact, and I'm pretty thankful for it, honestly.
That's Man, I appreciate you sharing that, man. And I wanted to take a moment again and thank you for being here. I know it's been a lot to the community seeing the big, beautiful, positive face that they've come to know and love as one of the greatest entertainers in our directory. Um, I wanted to take a moment and stop here for a moment before I forget it. So you're coming on tomorrow on this 2v2 tournament. You're going to be hosting this with Zero Crack. And can you remind us again, where's that going to be hosted at? Where can we find you during this time?
I'm gonna be on, I think Zero Crack's channel, but
Okay.
it's hosted by the Arena.
Hmm. Well, I mean, like, of course, they're organized by, for semantics on the wordsmithing, but I mean, I see that as the organizer. You guys is hosting it, semantics. It is what it is. I'm not trying to.
I'm just reading the term Zero Crack told me. He's gonna be
I
so
appreciate
mad
no,
at
I
me now.
appreciate no, I appreciate you bringing that up. So I appreciate you bringing it up and throwing it out there that of who's organized this shindig. I thank you guys for that. So, and you're gonna be streaming after as well, I believe, and we'll
Yeah.
definitely see you soon after that. Now, the Fatal, I have to ask you as well. How has For Honor changed your life, Fatal-Feit?
Man, it's hard to believe it's been what 3 years, 2 3 years now. I mean, I've always played single player games. That's what I was into. I was on the Assassin's Creed series, and so For Honor was like my first move into multiplayer and to understand multiplayer communities and how it works and tournaments, that the appeal and the necessity of tournaments and all these kind of things. Like I've learned so much because I've always been sort of a game design geek. I love video games. I like learning about them, and being able to visit Montreal several times, I made a lot of developer friends, and I was able to learn so much and see what it's like to work in a multiplayer game and just see what the process and everything. And now I'm not on For Honor anymore, but like they've taken me on to other games. I'm working on Skull and Bones. I've taken a trip down to Singapore for a week, which I'm very happy about. I mean, being able to travel so much, that's something I've never done before. So being able to see more of the world and just see so many exciting people and do so much more, like For Honor, as a game, it was really fun. I still enjoy it. I'm still one of the few competitive players who get on the game and say, "Hey, this was pretty fun." But from that, from life, like it's done so much for me. I'm very happy about it, and nothing more to say than to be like, I actually look forward to the future for Honor and where they go with tournaments and everything. Now that Mistress is on the game, maybe I'll come back to the game and who knows.
Okay. Well, Fatal, I want to thank you very much for your participation as well. Thank you all for being here. I wanted a side question. I meant to ask you earlier, Fatal. Did you also do testing on Assassin's Creed at all?
Assassin's Creed Origins.
Cool. Okay, I thought that you
Yeah.
had. All right, so guys, thank you so much for being here. Again, guys, I'm your host Norgoz.
Thank
this
you for
is
having us,
Setback,
Norgoz.
Raven,
very
and
much.
Fatal. And where can we where can we find you guys on a regular? Setback? Where can we find you on the regular here on Twitch?
Setback _. I stream usually 5 days a week, unless I'm a little baby and I take an extra day off. But yeah, and then I have a Twitter, I guess, and I usually shit post on there.
And we'll get all that at the
And-
end on the slide too, by the way, guys. You want to see his Twitter and his YouTube and all that good stuff, that'll be there. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you short there, buddy.
Yeah, but you did.
You know what? But I love you. It's okay. See,
I'll forgive you
I appreciate you.
eventually.
Eventually. Raven, when do you stream?
That's a good question. I don't know these days. I usually stream a couple days a week. Don't have a set schedule as of right now because I'm trying to figure some cool things out. Maybe I'll be able to talk about soon. But
Oh, that's right. You did say you had some things you're working on.
Twitch TV, the arena, or anywhere else where they're locking them down.
And Fatal-Feit. I know that you've done a lot. We've got a lot of classic content on your YouTube channel, correct?
Yeah.
So-
Just Fatal-Feit, just like the usual.
All right, so I got a question for you then, my man. You seems like you have a lot of fans that are in the chat, and you have a lot of people that seem to want to see more of you. Is it something that you might consider? Not asking you to commit to anything, but is it something you might consider branching out into the Twitch universe and
Be a streamer.
Premium Snapchat.
I mean, it sounds very fun. It's just I enjoy For Honor. Maybe if I start streaming, I'll be like everyone else and hate For Honor. That's always been one
Fair
of my
enough. Fair enough. All right. Well, I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate you being blunt about that. So, again, thank you all so much for joining me tonight. Thank you all of you that are watching. We will be back tomorrow. I'm sorry. We will be back next Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific. We're going to be talking about the honor code. We're going to be talking about the honor code or lack thereof. And I'm going to tell you that there's going to be other things we're going to be talking about. I will let you know of all of our future guests very, very shortly. Make sure that you follow here on Twitch, and you'll get a notification when we go live. You'll also get the updates on Twitter or on Discord. And I appreciate you guys very much for being here. Thank you to my guests, Setback, Raven, and Fatal, for being here. And with that, I'm going to do a brief outro, and we will... have a good night, and then we're gonna see Setback streaming. So I'll give it a couple minutes and get you time to log out and get started. Then we'll raid the Setback Meister. All right, have a good night, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
you.
you.
Thank you for having us, Norgoz. Much
Thank you.
appreciated.